Hello, students, and welcome back to class. Before we get started, let me take a minute to congratulate you all on your hard work. None of us signed up for an online class, yet here we are. We'll keep on working hard, you on your end, me on my end. We'll make this work, and we'll get through this together. The problems that we're about to work are more work on graphing straight lines. What's different about these problems, though, is that the equations are not in the form that we're used to having them in. All the graphs we've made so far, we have had y by itself. But oftentimes in algebra, an equation will come to you in this form. It makes it a little harder to graph. In order to get it into the form we want, let's show two lines of work. What I want to do is get y by itself. If I want to get y by itself, the first thing I'll do is move this 6x. If it's a positive 6x on this side of the equal sign, it'll be a negative 6x if I move it to the other side of the equal sign. Positive 6x here. Negative 6x when I move it over. Then I copy the 10. Now I want to get y by itself. The y is being multiplied by 2. So in order to get y by itself, I have to divide by 2. But if I divide here by 2, I must divide everywhere by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1y. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Now that's the form we like to have our equation in when we graph it. Let's use 0, 1, and 2 as my x values. I'll plug in the 2 first. If I plug a 2 in right here, then it's 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Negative 6 plus 5 negative 1. Now I'll plug in the 1. I'm plugging in 1 for x. 1 times negative 3 is negative 3, and negative 3 plus 5 is 2. When I plug in 0, 0 times anything is 0, and 0 plus 5 is 5. Let's plot those 3 points on my graph. When x is 0, y is 5. 0 left and right, 5 up. 2, 3, 4, 5. When x is 1, y is 2. That's 1 to the right and 2 up. 1 to the right and 2 up. When x is 2, y is negative 1. X is 2 to the right, y is 1 down. 2 to the right, 1 down. See how nicely those 3 points line up? Now to complete our work, we should label some points. This is the point 0, 5. This was 1, 2. This was 2, negative 1. That looks great. Let's try a second example. What I notice about this problem, though, is that the y has no number in front of it. So before I start, let me rewrite the problem. And remember that a variable that has no number in front of it, the number is a 1. We'll actually treat that 1 as a negative 1. Now I need to get y by itself to make it easier to graph. And I can do that in 2 lines of work. First, we'll get negative 1y by itself. Then we'll get y by itself. In order to get negative 1y by itself, this 4x has to leave. If it's a positive 4x on the left side of the equal sign, it'll be a negative 4x when I move it to the right, alongside of that positive 2. I want to get y by itself. It's being multiplied by negative 1. And the inverse of multiplication is division. So I should divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1, and divide by negative 1. Negative 1 divided by negative 1 is 1y. That's what I wanted. Negative 4 divided by negative 1 is positive 4. 2 divided by negative 1 is negative 2. Now let's use 0, 1, and 2 for x values and get the y's that go with it. When x is 2, I'll plug a 2 in right here. 2 times 4 is 8, and 8 minus 2 is 6. Now plug in the 1. When I plug in 1 for x, 1 times 4 is 4, and 4 minus 2 is 2. Plug in 0 for x. 0 times anything is 0, and 0 subtract 2 is negative 2. Let's plot these points. When x is 0, y is negative 2. That's 0 left and right, and 2 down. When x is 1, y is 2. 1 to the right, 2 up. 1 to the right, 2 up. When x is 2, y is 6. 2 right, 6 up. 2 right, 6 up. Let's connect those with a nice straight line. And label them. Wonderful. Number 3 will have a slight twist in it as we work our way through. First thing I always like to do is try to get y by itself. I can do that in 2 lines of work. First step, move the positive 3x to the other side of the equal sign. Positive 3x here becomes negative 3x here, next to the positive 12. Now get y by itself. It's being multiplied by negative 2, so we'll divide. Divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2. Of course, negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1, 1y. That's what we wanted. You can't divide 3 by 2 very nicely. I'm going to notice that it's a negative divided by a negative, which is positive, and 3 divided by 2 I'll just show as 3 divided by 2x. Positive, though, because 2 negatives make a positive. 12 divided by negative 2 is negative 6. Now, when I set up my XY chart, I've got a fraction. Remember how to choose your x's properly. If my denominator is 2, then I'll count by 2's. I'll use 0, 2, and 4. Whatever my denominator is, I skip count by that number to get my x values. Let's plug in the 4 first. If I plug a 4 in here, then here's the steps. It's 4, divide by 2 is 2, times 3 is 6, minus 6 is 0. Let me say that again. That was a lot. If I plug a 4 in here, it's 4, divide by 2 is 2, times 3 is 6, and 6 minus 6, that's 0. Let's try that again. This time we'll plug in the 2. I'll plug the 2 in right here. And it's 2, divide by 2 is 1, 1 times 3 is 3, and 3 minus 6 is negative 3. Let's try that again. Plug in the 2 here. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 times 3 is 3, and 3 minus 6 is negative 3. When I plug in 0, 0 times anything is just 0. That's 0 minus 6. Let's plot those 3 points. When x is 0, y is negative 6. When x is 0, y is negative 6. When x is 2, y is negative 3. That's 2 right, 3 down. 2 right, 3 down. When x is 4, y is 0. When x is 4 right, y is 0 up and down. We'll connect those with a nice straight line. And then label. Great. Let's try one more. Now again, when you have a variable that doesn't have a number in front of it, we can rewrite the equation, and the variable with no number in front of it, we'll let the number be 1. Now let's use our 2 lines of work to get y by itself. When I bring a positive 1x to this side of the equal sign, it's a negative 1x next to the 15. Now get y by itself by dividing by 3. Three divided by 3 is 1. Negative 1 divided by 3, well, I can't divide negative 1 by 3 very nicely, so I'll just leave it as negative 1 divided by 3x. 15 divided by 3, that's 5. Now let's choose smart x's. When I have a fraction in front of the x, I skip count by the denominator. The denominator is 3, so I'll use 0, 3, and 6. Let's plug in the 6 first. When I plug 6 in for x, I go 6 divided by 3 is 2. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 plus 5 is 3. Let's check that again. We'll plug in the 6. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Times negative 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 plus 5, that's 3. Let's try plugging in the 3. If I plug in 3, I'll go 3 divided by 3 is 1. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. And negative 1 plus 5, that's 4. Plug in 0. Well, 0 times anything is 0. And 0 plus 5, that's 5. Let's see if we can plot these points. When x is 0, y is 5. Here's x 0, y 5 is up 5. When x is 3, y is 4. 3 to the right and 4 up. 1, 2, 3 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4 up. When x is 6, y is 3. That's 6 right and 3 up. Those 3 points line up very nicely. And we'll label, label, and label. All right, these look fabulous. Your turn now. Go do some homework, and then I'll see you back here.